Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. Today is Friday, August 15th, and thanks for your patience. Getting started a little late, but at least I got one out today. We're doing one today. I'm so happy to be here. I had a deadline today for a writing project, and that I was kind of focused on that all week and a couple of other things. I have a new Substack out. If you're interested, about my husband and I got to visit Manning, Iowa. So that I also put that out this week. That was yesterday. So you can find that at kerismith.substack.com. I've mentioned that trip before. I've thought about it a lot. Manning, Iowa. I had no idea why our friend who's from there is so passionate about it until we got there. And then I realized this is the best small town in America. This is amazing. And I kind of was trying to just put it all into one piece and articulate why for the people who haven't been there. But it's a small town. It's not falling apart. A lot of small towns have gone through periods of economic depression where you've got crumbling infrastructure, you've got old Victorian buildings that are in disrepair, things that need loving attention. And our small town's a little bit like that. There's a lot of empty storefronts and crumbling buildings. And we're in this period where we live where it's just starting to be revitalized and people are there's like the new businesses starting, things like that. And we're renovating this house, there's other people renovating. But Manning, Iowa is already renovated. They have historic buildings that have been preserved. All the yards are well manicured. Everything looks lovely. And they have so many events and so many attractions there. Every weekend they have stuff going on. Like the community, it's like they all treat each other like family. Everyone's always volunteering there. We met so many people who volunteer, who donate their money. There's flowers all along the main streets. All the old buildings look great. In the weekend we were there alone, they had brought in my husband for a music show, but then also we went to a horse show and an old car show. It's just there's so much going on and so much to do. And they've built this amazing park system there, all these different parks with walking trails. There's miles and miles of well-maintained walking paths, so people are getting out into nature, and it was just very cool. I can't say enough nice things about it. They have this historic church called the Trinity Church, and there's a little documentary. I linked it in my Substack. You can go and watch how they moved this church like 11 miles. This church is over 100 years old. They moved it with the help of John Deere, and they made a little documentary about it. And they had the choir walking in front of the tractors pulling the church, and the choir singing this song that they wrote for the church moving. And it just gave me goosebumps. It's so cool. They moved it to Heritage Park, where they have all of these attractions to preserve it for, generations to come. They brought in an authentic German house barn from the 1600s. Is someone knocking? Sorry. I thought my husband was knocking. They brought in this house barn, and they had to hire, because of the way the house barn, that they have a thatched roof, they had to bring in experts from Germany to redo the thatched roof. And they brought it in because they have a lot of German heritage there, and they wanted some kind of attraction or some connection to their German heritage. It's the biggest house barn in America. And now it's a part of what they call their heritage park, and you can take a tour of it. And for those of you who don't know what a house barn is, it's like when you used to live in, it's what it sounds like. It's a house barn. You used to live in the barn with your animals. And so they tell you about what life was like back then in the 1600s and living with your animals. And the tour guide was great. His name was Tim. He was one of the best tour guides I've ever had. He was so funny and personable. And I was joking in the article that he reminded me of Vicky. My favorite tour guide before I met Tim in real life was Phil Hartman playing Vicky, the tour guide at Alcatraz in So I Married an Axe Murderer. Have you guys seen that movie? It's hilarious. Don't watch the edited version. If you watch the made for TV version, they edit out all of Phil Hartman's funny lines. You have to get the original. And if anybody knows that character, I loved this tour guide that we had there. And so if you go to Manning, Iowa, you should call and get a tour with Tim. Okay. I think I think everything's going smoothly. I got confused for a second because I thought somebody was knocking. Yes, Keri has a knocking ghost. I do. But it can't be my husband. He's back. He's been on the road for several days doing music, and he's back now. And so he's right back at like working on the yard, our backyard, and that's where he's out. He's out there right now. So I knew it couldn't be him. Also, I see Mr. Robert Lowry in the chat. Thank you for linking my Substack, Robert. I got to see Robert this past weekend. My husband and we had another house concert. This is only our second one this year. And our friend Sarah, who's a soprano, came and sang. And it was beautiful. We had people come from all over. We had some Deprogrammed people here. Robert was one of them. Robert took a lot of great photos and videos. So we'll have something to show you guys soon and just try and capture the magic. I know Randy from the chat was here. One of my friends, Cecil, like there were lots of people who came. So that was a lot of fun. Good to see you, Robert. I'm glad you made it home safely. Okay. It's the ghost parrot. It is. Those of you that don't know the lore of this old house, the original owners, we're the only people that's ever lived here other than the original owners. They built the house in 1914, and one of their daughters lived in the house when they were elderly and after they passed away, and she was very eccentric according to all the locals, and she had a parrot and would sit out on the balcony with her parrot and paint. She was a painter. She painted all kinds of things. And also they told me she was she would go out and do her gardening and dress to the nine, like just dress really nicely doing her gardening. So I've heard all of these stories about her, which make her sound really cool. It's not the raccoon. We got rid of the raccoon, Dion. Okay, let me make two announcements. So this is exciting. I'm going to get these links up before Monday, so I have time to tell people about it, and you guys can tell people about it. Monday, during our live show at 2:00 Central, I'm going to have Razor Fist on. If you have questions for Razor Fist, let me know. If you're a fan of his, if there's things you think I should ask him. I've watched several of his videos, but it's been a while, and then he popped back up on my radar because he's had some very interesting thoughts and comments and posts on X lately. And there's I was just like, oh, I never talked to him. I want to talk to him. Like he seems like he's thinking about contemplating a lot of things lately and about God and other things. And so, oh yeah, Dan says I love Razor Fist. Okay, so if you guys are into that, then so please make a point to be here during he's going to be live. We're not pre-recording, live on Monday at 2:00 Central. I'll get the link up so we can promote it and tell people about it. And if you have any questions for him, drop them. I guess you can do it in the comments on this video. It would be great. Put it in the comments on this video because I'll come back through and pull the questions ahead of time. Or you can be there that day and put them in the chat. You can do it that way. So somebody says he is a comic book character. I don't know what that means. His SEO is garbage. Well, I don't know what that means either. So mine is probably also garbage. So you need to help me, Chip Douglas. I don't even know what that means. You're talking to somebody who's like, I'm such a Luddite, man. It's shocking that I even do YouTube. So this phone is, you don't even want to know how old this thing is, and all the things I did my first voice memo to someone yesterday, and I'm like, is this how it works? So yeah. Okay, so that's Monday, and then this is incredible. I have to tell you about Tuesday. I'm putting out an interview on Tuesday, and I'll get it ready to go. So again, I can tell people about it before, like during the weekend. I just had probably one of the most amazing guests I've ever had. We pre-recorded it, and I'm going to be putting it out on Tuesday. And you may know him as the FBI whistleblower. His name is Marcus Allen. and he was in the Charlotte, North Carolina FBI office, and he testified. He was one of the FBI agents who they put on like permanent leave, basically without pay, and for 2 years they tried to cancel him because he questioned the official narrative they were putting out about January 6th. And also, he didn't go along with their draconian COVID policies. And you may know him because when he testified about overreach of the federal government, his speech went viral, and it was just so, I think the reason it went viral is because we're not used to seeing people who are authentic and who have conviction and who just speak the truth without fear. And so I got to interview this guy, and no, not Marcus Allen, the football player. No, not that one. The FBI whistleblower. Anyway, he was amazing, and we had a long raging talk, and I asked him all the questions that you would ever want to ask somebody who was in the FBI. I went to my group of my smartest friends and I said, "Hey, what questions do you have for this FBI whistleblower?" And so he let me ask him at the end, rapid fire. I asked all the questions. Epstein, is Fuentes a Fed? I asked all of it. Is Patriot Front an op? All of it. So you're going to want to see this. He talked about God a lot also. And funny enough, I wasn't the one steering it there the whole time. Usually I feel like that's what I'm interested in, and maybe I have to rein myself in. But no, this is what he wanted to talk about. He talked about doing the right thing and having courage. And this guy just, I can't even explain it. You have to see it. This interview is going to come out on Tuesday. I'm going to cut some clips of it. I really am just so honored that he came and talked to us, and so yeah, that's going to be coming out on Tuesday. Brahma Bull's laughing because he says that DM group is your smartest friends. LMAO. He's in that group. You guys, look, it's a little bit of flattery, but you're some of my smartest friends. Let me put it that way. I didn't send it to my science and math high school friends group. They're some of my smartest friends, but a different kind of smart. You're my most politically savvy and most conspiratorial friends. How about that? Your mind works. You think of all the possible conspiracies and things that could be happening. That's why I wanted to ask you guys. Bromville, looking forward to that video. And you guys know everything that's happening in politics. You know all the things that I don't know. So yes, and Brahma Bull, who's here, by the way, has a show called The Bullpen. You have a political show every Sunday, and I would love to come back on it now that I'm better. Okay. You're not with the dumbs. It just happens to be a group that I'm in. I'm already in that group. I didn't have to make one. I was lazy. I just went into it and said, "Hey, let me ask these guys." Oh man, you guys are cracking me up. Okay. So that's Monday and Tuesday. That's pretty exciting news for Deprogrammed. So let's see. Look, this video, this isn't, some of you may think this is not a hard-hitting topic. It's definitely not a political topic. It's more of a cultural topic. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about dating and young people. I know I just did an episode about some disturbing and concerning statistics about young people and anxiety, and literacy rates and things like that. So, and that episode was called "The Young People Are Not All Right," if you want to go watch it, or "The Kids Are Not All Right." And following up on that, I saw this video that went viral on X. I'm talking about like over 7 million views, and everybody is offering commentary on it. Everyone from Crowder, I don't know, all these big channels are offering commentary on it. Everybody's talking about it. And I think that they're wrong. I think their takes are wrong, most of these people. So let me just show this clip to you and see what you guys think about this. Now, first of all, well, before I tell you my opinion, let me just play it. He says, this guy who shared it, she was way too cool for any of these guys. You can see, oh wait, sorry, not 7 million views, 75 million views. And this is, everybody's commenting on this and talking about it and watching it. So let me play it and see what you guys think.
Okay, I'm Riley. I'm 24. I'm from Houston, Texas. And honestly, I'm down for any good adventure. I just got scuba dive certified and I'm planning to go to Australia this summer. So I'm super excited about that. And then I just picked up skiing like 2 years ago. And I honestly love any themed party. Like those are like my favorite things to go to, my favorite things to plan. And I'm looking for someone that wants to be my adventure buddy and it's someone that I can trust in and is going to be there for me.
Aww. If any gentleman would like to get to know Riley more, please step forward.
They're nervous. They're
Come on,
scared.
guys.
They're so scared. Come on.
Hey Riley, we're gonna have you sit down, but thank you for introducing yourself.
Okay, so that's the clip. Now that's the edited version that went viral on X. And yes, thank you. Okay, so first observation. I'll come back to this actually. Let me just start this so I can come back to it. Texas Sheep Lady. So this clip, whoever cut it together to put it online, it's out of context. It's from a show. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. It's a Mormon dating show. So a lot of people didn't know that to begin with. And it's a blind dating show. It's from a show called Provo's Most Eligible. I'm not kidding. I didn't know about this show until this clip went viral, but I was curious where it came from, so I went to look. Now, the thing they don't show you in this edit, they did edit it for Twitter, is that they can't see her. She's behind a curtain. So most of the takes are wrong right out the gate because they're talking about her physical appearance in one way or another. They're either saying these men are shallow and they don't like the way she looks, or they're saying she is ugly or she's dressed frumpy or whatever and blah, blah, blah. So all of that's out wrong because they couldn't see her. So that's a correction there. The other thing is that a lot of women I usually agree with and respect are trying to say that this is evidence of the men's loneliness epidemic is their fault and that men are too picky. They're taking this one tiny clip that's been edited out of context and they're using it to criticize men and say that men are looking for the wrong things and that young men are too shallow and picky and that they should have stood up and gone on a date with her and that they were all wrong and that those men are all terrible people and they're, all 10 of those men are red flags and she survived a bullet, by them not picking her. And I think all of that is just contextually wrong. If you watch the whole episode, she was the first one to come up. So they know there's 9 other women there they haven't seen or heard from yet. And this is the first one to speak. And so if they go and couple up with her on the way this show works, they don't even get to hear who else is there. So why would they do that, first of all? And second of all, they couldn't see her. And if we don't have the benefit of the sense that we rely on most often is visual, is our eyesight. If we don't have the gift of vision, then what are we relying on? Our second most used sense is audible, is being able to hear her. And her voice is grating. Thank you. This is the comment I was going to put up. Texas Sheep Lady, her voice grates. Yes. I'm not saying this isn't a prescriptive. This is just descriptive. I'm just describing what is being heard. If you watch that video and you close your eyes and just listen, her voice is grating. It's the tone of her voice. It's the pitch of her voice. It's the way she runs everything together. There is a slight speech impediment people have pointed out, but this is the sense that people are relying on because they don't have the benefit of eyesight. They can't see what she looks like. And this is just a natural thing. People are attracted to different things. On average, that higher pitched grating voice is going to turn people off. It doesn't mean she's not worthy or she's never going to get a date or there's not somebody for her. None of that. I'm just saying to listen to watch this clip out of context and then indict all men is just silly. And I think people are just looking for quick hot takes, or I don't know, maybe they're just looking to find a reason to criticize young men. I'm not saying the men in there are not worthy of criticism. If you watch the whole episode, there are several of them who are very annoying. The hipster looking one with the glasses from England, he says he's there to get a green card. You know, he's just very shallow. Like, there are some of those men are definitely deserving of criticism, but not because they didn't stand up to go on a date with this girl. Okay. Yeah, it's all for the content, says Bros and Bros. I know. I was like, wait a minute, why is this going viral? And why is everyone jumping all over these young men? She sounds nervous to me. Yes, she was. And as she gets older, she'll get over that. A lot of that resonates with me and who I was when I was that age. She's nervous. She's the first one to go up. The way she speaks is already slightly annoying. She's doing some upspeak and some of those other things and saying like a lot. And then because she's nervous, she's running everything together, and it just sounds like she's thirsty. She's, here's all the things I do. Look, I'm super cool. I go scuba diving, I go skiing, and also I like to have fun parties, and also that, and come on I need somebody to be my buddy and see how cool I am. Like, it's just like she's running it all together and she's nervous. The second and third and fourth girls who went up, they were a lot more calm, probably because they weren't going first, and they had a lower tone of voice, and they didn't do as much upspeak. And you could tell immediately if you watch it, oh, there's going to be several guys who stand up and want to talk to them. And there were. So I think all the takes about that girl were just wrong. And I don't know, people looking for a quick point of view just to have a point of view without watching the whole episode. I went and watched the whole episode because I wanted to see. So you can go watch it too. It's kind of interesting. It's Mormons dating, not just dating, but looking for a spouse. It's called like I said, it's called Provo's Most Eligible, but they call that first episode The Altar. And the whole thing's online. Okay. So that is a viral clip about young people dating. And funny enough, I think everybody's talking about it for the wrong reasons, and they're drawing the wrong conclusions from it. And I don't think it really has a lot to do with the problems in the dating world currently, but this does. Let me share this instead. So I started looking at some of the data because I keep hearing that Generation Z is not dating, and that they don't have the same quality and the same kind of relationships that we have, or that we had, that Gen X had, or even that millennials had. And so this is an interesting article. Now, this has been reprinted in a couple of places, but a couple of news sites as well. But I figured I'd just come to the first place I found this particular commentary piece, and this was on the American Institute for Boys and Men. And the headline is Gen Z's Romance Gap: Why Nearly Half of Young Men Are Not Dating. This is new. This is kind of like in that last episode where I was telling you Gen Z, there's some things that are very strange about Gen Z that we find strange. Like, they're not driving. They're not getting their driver's license. Well, they're also not dating. So let me just jump into it. Until very recently, American culture has operated on the flawed notion that teenage dating and sex required little encouragement. Teenage romance was once seen as a natural part of American adolescence. This, it turns out, is completely wrong. Teenage dating is not inevitable, and it's a rapidly disappearing part of the American teenage experience. These relationships often served as inspiration for Hollywood's tragedies and comedies, but in real life, they are frequently formative and incredibly valuable for young people. Moreover, the decline of teen dating may be having an especially pernicious impact on the development of young men. In the late 1990s, Monroe County, New York, where I grew up, launched the Not Me, Not Now campaign to encourage teens to abstain from sex. Sex education classes in my high school offered little information, and conversations about healthy relationships and dynamics were absent. Much of the public and political attention was focused on reducing unfortunate outcomes of teenage sex. The local campaign in my community was part of a national movement to reduce teen pregnancy. The Clinton administration made addressing teenage pregnancy a priority in their first term, proposing a national mobilization to combat it. In 1996, the Department of Health and Human Services launched a national strategy to prevent teen pregnancy. It worked. Teen pregnancy fell steadily during the 1990s and continued to fall over the next 2 decades, mostly because more teens avoided sex altogether. Governmental surveys have recorded double-digit declines in teenage sexual experiences since the late 1980s. For most Americans, the decline of teen pregnancies is a reason to celebrate, and for many, falling rates of teen sex represent an equally positive development. Now, for me, this is true. I think this is a great thing that teenagers are not getting pregnant and that they're not having sex before marriage. I mean, I think they should wait. I think culturally we got to a place where we were doing everything backwards. And I put myself in this. I was a part of the secular world where it was like when I was a young woman, like in my 20s, it was the norm. It was the norm in the third wave feminist movement I came up in and everything that, in college, where people like having sex and hookup culture, like having sex on the first date it was pushed as like a normal thing. And that's backwards. It's like, sex, then maybe dating, then maybe marriage, instead of dating, marriage, sex. Do you know what I mean? So this, I think, is a positive thing, but it goes beyond them not having sex and not getting pregnant. It goes beyond that into they're not even having relationships. Like they're not dating. And this is also a great point. I'm going to get to this in a minute. Laura Bryn says they may be having sex in different ways. If you know, you know. Is that what that means? Oh, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I do. We'll get into that. Okay. So let me continue. But it's not just sex that's declined among teens. It's romantic relationships at all, like overall. Teens are dating less. A survey conducted by the Survey Center on American Life found that only 56% of Generation Z adults and 54% of Gen Z men said they were involved in a romantic relationship at any point during their teenage years. This represents a remarkable change from previous generations where teenage dating was much more common. More than 3/4 of baby boomers, 78%, and Gen Xers, 76%, report having had a boyfriend or girlfriend as teenagers. I mean, we even had in Gen X, we even had like going together in middle school and elementary school, which I don't know about you guys, but at my school, at my age, like the first boy I went with, I'll put that in quotes, was in 5th grade. And it literally meant that we said hello to each other. It didn't mean anything. It like his friends came up to my friends at the roller skating rink and said he wants to go with Keri, and I said yes, I want to go with him. And then we were going. People knew we were going together, and it didn't mean anything. I don't think I ever really talked to him. But the point is, at that young age, it's kind of like young people are practicing and they're trying on, dating or, what does that mean to a 5th grader? Like nothing, but you're trying it on. You're trying to see I'm going with that guy, right? Are they not even doing that? They're not even going together. Yeah. Talking to, this is a Kiwi talking to, that was another way of saying you were going with someone. Therese, going together seems so funny now. It does. I think he gave me like a slap bracelet or something, and then we were going together. Okay, let me continue with this article. Okay, 44% of Gen Z men today report having no relationship experience at all during their teen years, double the rate for older men. So it's double what it used to be, have no experience. And then they have a chart here because visually sometimes it's easier to take in data visually in a chart. So they have Gen Z men are dating less during their teenage years. The percentage of American men who say they had a girlfriend or boyfriend during most or all of my teen years, that's the orange. During some of my teen years, that's the yellow, and not at all is the blue or the gray. Let's say the gray blue. And here on the bottom, you have baby boomers, and you can see there's a larger percentage of them who had a girlfriend during all of their teen years. Like 32% of them had a girlfriend during all of their teen years. 46% of them, that's the yellow bar, had a girlfriend during some of their teen years, and then only 20% never had a girlfriend during their teen years. And if you look at it, goes in order. It's a baby boomer, and then the next one is Gen X, and then it decreases more to millennials, and then it decreases more to Gen Z. By the time you get to Gen Z up here, you can see 44%, by far the biggest group, 44%, never had a girlfriend at all during their teen years. Never. And then 40%, that's the second largest number from Gen Z, had a girlfriend during some of their teen years, and only 14% during all of their teen years. So it's trending to no romantic relationships. The decline in teen dating is not good for young people, especially men, since these early romantic relationships offer vital opportunities for developing relationship skills and confidence. So then this study, this article, this opinion piece goes on to speculate on some of the reasons why this is happening. So the 3 reasons teens are not dating. And funny enough, they mentioned Jonathan Haidt, who is the person I pulled from a lot in the last episode about, the kids are not doing all right, talking about increasing anxiety rates, this, the advent of social media and iPhones and all of this. So I definitely recommend you go and check out that episode. Okay, so the 3 reasons teens are not dating. There seem to be 3 probable causes of the dating decline: immersive technology, parental supervision, and changing norms. There are lots of reasons to fret over smartphones and social media. See the commentary from Jonathan Haidt for an overview. One underappreciated aspect of their usage is that they can promote passivity. Too many teenagers watch online imitations of life experiences instead of having their own. More teenagers are content watching from the sidelines rather than becoming active participants in their own lives. So I think this is a great point. As we talked about in the last episode about young people, we're sort of using them as guinea pigs. They're the first generation to have these ubiquitous entertainment devices on them at all times. Now, I know some parents, there are outliers who are not giving iPhones, who are not giving devices to their kids, and I commend those parents. Although I'm not telling you what to do. I don't know. I'm not a parent yet, so I'm just saying I think I'm impressed by those parents who are able to do that and to parent without it and make it work. But for the most part, I'm just speaking in averages here. The norm most young people have these devices, and they have them all the time, and it's given them access to never-ending 24-hour stimulation, entertainment, all the things that we are doing that we've been introduced to as adults. They're getting all of that as young people. So it's constant stimulation, whether it's scrolling on TikTok videos, just kind of mindlessly, numbly scrolling, going through Instagram videos, or watching shows or podcasts or YouTube channels or makeup tutorials or whatever it is they're into. Video gaming, games on the phone, things like that. The other thing it's done is it's given them immediate, instant access to porn, and not just porn at the drop of a hat, but pretty extreme kinds of porn. And previous generations didn't have that. They didn't have this immediate, young people as they were developing didn't have that immediate, I can just go watch some porn instead of talking to a real person. Uh, and I think we don't know the effects that this is going to have on young people yet. We don't yet know, right? So this first reason, you know, smartphones and social media, watching from the sidelines, I think that's a great point. It might be the biggest factor. This is the first iPhone generation, some people call them, where they're constantly plugged in. It continues. It says video games have also changed the social landscape, particularly for teenage boys, since this article is mostly about boys. Now, there are things they could focus on for girls too, but this article is mostly about boys. So they're talking about video games. Half of Generation Z men report that they play video games daily, often with their friends. But in most cases, online socializing is a poor replacement for a real world hangout. Fewer friends means fewer dates, too. My own research shows that spending time with friends was strongly associated with teenage dating. This also makes sense. If most of their socializing with their other male friends is happening digitally, if it's like if they're playing a baseball video game, for example, and they're all remotely in different homes while they're playing and they're on the headsets, or even if they're at a friend's house and they're playing together, they're not out, you know, at the baseball diamond playing baseball with their friends in person and socializing the way that previous generations have done, the way that we did. They're online, even when they're socializing with friends. Technology has certainly reduced incentives for teenagers to hang out in person, but parenting likely plays a role as well. Parents are far more involved in their children's lives today than previous generations, abetted by technologies that permit them to actively monitor their behavior and whereabouts. Nothing more quickly quashes romantic aspirations than the constant hovering of helicopter parents. Teenage relationships tend to emerge in the absence of parental supervision. But I don't know what I think about that paragraph. You guys tell me what you think about that. I'm not really sure about that. But perhaps the strongest argument for why teen dating has declined is that young people simply no longer view it as a priority. Surveys show that young people put marriage and serious relationships on the back burner. Perhaps this is why research from UCLA finds that young adults age 18 to 24 want to see less sex and romance in their television shows and movies. What? It's so foreign to me. We Gen X girls, okay, you know if you're around my age, like we grew up, gosh, who were we idolizing? Kevin Costner. He was in all the movies back then, right? Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Dances with Wolves. One of my friends, she had a Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves action figure, a Kevin Costner action figure, and we used to celebrate his birthday. She would make him a little cupcake. Everybody, we wanted to see more Kevin Costner romance. Are you kidding me? It was sort of a future imagining about when you meet your boyfriend or when you meet your husband. It was that kind of even the songs were there were love ballads. My husband and I were rocking out recently to Chicago. We were just listening to some of these ballads and we're like, why don't they make love ballads like this anymore? The 80s and 90s love songs. Where are these? It's so foreign to me to see that young people say they don't want to see, we want to see less romantic relationships in our entertainment. What? Yeah, I think you might be right. TS says too much prawn everywhere you look porn. Too much porn everywhere you look. Yeah. I saw an interesting video covering female porn and romance novels. Probably has something to do with all this. Maybe. Yeah. Well, women definitely, if you look at statistics, they are consuming more porn consistently. It's increasing every year. Women are consuming more porn. Men and women in general are consuming more porn. People who claim to be Christian are consuming more porn, which is sad. But aside from that, as you pointed out, romance novels I mean, for a long time, we would say romance novels are like porn for women, essentially, because women are more supposedly mentally stimulated and men are more visually stimulated. And so reading a book about, the sex acts that are happening is more like up women's alley. I think I haven't checked the stats in a while, but for a long time, and I think it's probably still true, that romance novels are the number one genre of book that is sold in America. Therese says hookup culture has ruined both men and women. The women are thirsty and the men don't want women who sleep around. This is true. I'm going to start this and come back to it because I have some ideas about that. And then Kiwi says, I want to know what love is. See, the young people don't even know what that song is. It's so good. Okay. Let's see if there's any others. Okay. I'm going to go back to this. So I stopped during this paragraph, but perhaps the strongest argument for why teen dating has declined is that young people simply no longer view it as a priority. Surveys show that young people put marriage and serious relationships on the back burner. Perhaps this is why research from UCLA finds that young adults age 18 to 24 want to see less sex and romance in their television shows and movies. The preferred age for getting married has shifted steadily over the last few decades. In 2020, Gallup found that more than half of Americans believe that the ideal age for men to get married is late 20s or even later. At one time, it was fairly common for high school relationships to lead to marriage, sometimes shortly after graduation. This is far less common today and less socially accepted when it does happen. Even if marriage is a goal, it is a far more distant one than it once was, and educational attainment and professional priorities supersede interest in establishing romantic relationships. This is so sad, and this is what I think is wrong-headed, and I'm concerned about this because this started with my generation, even though it wasn't as prevalent then as it is now, and the numbers have been increasing, of course, but this started with the tail end of Gen X, at least. And as a woman in my 40s, the tail end of Gen X who went through this whole feminist kind of, you should put your education and your career and everything first, and you don't want to be a breeder. There was a real prejudice against people who got married young. That's true. That was in the social circles I was in, there was people called them breeders. And there was a kind of a smugness and a looking down the nose at such people. And now, of course, I feel like I want to shake these young people and say, we were wrong. We were arrogant and ignorant and wrong. And this isn't to say I'm unhappy with where I'm at. I'm not. I'm very happy with the blessings God has given me, and God's timing is perfect. And my husband and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. I'm so happy we met when we did, and we've gone through similar life lessons and learned things around the same time. And in some ways, we're both late bloomers at understanding certain things. And I wouldn't change any of it because it's what led me to him. But do I regret certain things? Yes, of course. And do I regret always putting marriage or family, like this on the back burner? Yes. And so some of the stuff of what the red pill community talks about, even though I think the red pill community leads people away from traditional biblical marriage, it leads people away from creating healthy relationships and families. The red pill community, in the end, is just as destructive as feminism. They're both leading people away from marriage. They're both leading people away from a healthy relationship and kids and a stable building block of society, right? But it gets some things right. Just like feminism, honestly, gets any kind of snake oil is going to come with bits of truth. That's how they hook you in. And so some of the things it gets right are that feminism, third wave feminism in particular, sort of sold young women this lie that sexual promiscuity was somehow empowering, or that it would make us happy, or that delaying marriage and family would make us happy, and that we were going to find meaning and satisfaction, like life's highest meaning and satisfaction and stuff, in career, which I think is a lie. And that you can always have kids later. No. And red pill community gets a lot of this stuff right about the lies that women have been sold. And I think a lot of young women are still being sold these lies. And you can see it reflected in their attitudes about dating and marriage. Let me see. I am so sorry. I just saw this awful story. Shadow's brother in the chat. I'm not going to put that on the screen. I don't want to single you out by reading that, but that's awful. And that sounds very selfish. I'm very sorry that happened to you. My goodness. Okay. Here, let me go back to this. Sorry, that just shocked me. I shouldn't always look at the chat. I would see something shocking and then okay. The benefits of teen romance. So this article gets into like, what are young people missing out on because they're not dating and they're not figuring out these roles and getting, practice in relationships and learning what interpersonal skills and things like that. So does it matter if teens are dating less? Yes. This article takes the position that yes, it does matter. And I agree. Yes, because these early romantic relationships are important opportunities to learn crucial life skills. Few relationships are more strongly associated with long-term happiness and personal fulfillment than the one we have with our partner and spouse. For this reason alone, it's remarkable that so many parents are ambivalent about their teenage children pursuing romantic relationships. Parents invest an incredible amount of time and energy curating and cultivating learning opportunities and enrichment activities for their children. But dating and relationships are not things that most parents stress except in the negative. Yet these experiences are invaluable for teenagers. The pursuit of romantic relationships is especially important for young men who are often hemmed in by conventional notions of masculine behavior. Early dating and relationship experiences are fertile ground for social learning. I've argued previously that male friendship does not necessarily equip men to have healthy romantic relationships. Quote, friendships are incredibly important developmentally and offer early lessons in empathy, compassion, and reciprocity. Friendships can teach us healthy ways to manage disagreements, resolve conflicts, show affection, and practice intimacy. But men and women approach friendship quite differently. Ignoring problems, minimizing feelings, taunting, and teasing are not effective ways to communicate with your partner or spouse, but it's how a lot of men learn to communicate with each other. This is so true. This part, teasing, taunting, this is if you've never had the benefit of being a woman who is invited to be and allowed to be in what is predominantly a males only space, just for a brief amount of time, then you may not know this, but I guess most women know this by now. Men, when they're by themselves, as a form of affection, will like roast each other and stuff all the time. And when I first became introduced to this, it was at a gun club, at a shooting club, and it wasn't men only, but it just happened to be made up mostly of men, and they just roast each other constantly, but they were friendly about it. It's hard to explain, and women don't do this. And so that was my first time. It was very foreign to me. I was pretty young then, and I was learning this, like, what is going on? I actually bought a little book called Insults and Comebacks to try and help myself with it, because I would get out there and they would be ripping, and they would rip on me too, and I didn't know how to hang. I'm like, what is going on? They would make jokes. If one of them was old, they would all make jokes about how old he was. If one of them was black, they would make jokes that he was black. If one was Jewish, they would make jokes that he was Jewish. Whatever it was about you, they would make jokes. One guy had a heart problem. They made fun of his heart problem. It sounds cruel to women, but it's not. It's the way they roast one another in good fun. And Yes. Okay. She says if you've grown up with brothers, then you get a small taste of it. Yeah. So this is not true though, Mario. Women don't have friends. That's not true. We do. I know that there is a certain kind of woman who doesn't, and I have avoided those communities, those kinds of groups of women like the plague my whole life. I've been pretty successful at it. My best friends are women, and and that it's not the stereotype of like the mean girl backbiting, and I've been blessed enough to avoid that for the most part in my life. So, but our friendships are different when we're all hanging out. It's more like my best female girlfriends, like we have a sense of humor, for sure is there, and cracking jokes, but we don't roast in the same way that men do with each other. And so this article, and it's like, hey, look, male friendships are good and everything for learning when you're young and you're developing friendships, and boys with other boys, you're learning how to be social and to engage with people, and you're learning empathy, but it's not teaching you a lot for that romantic relationship with a woman, because relationship is not going to be based on roasting each other. For the most part. Sometimes you do. One reason many younger women chose to date older men is due to their maturity and greater emotional intelligence and their relationship experience. Financial resources matter too, but they are no replacement for being able to communicate effectively or set and respect boundaries. Critically, experience also bestows men with a sense of confidence, an essential dating commodity. This is it. That's the most attractive thing right there, confidence. More, if I could tell young people anything, young men anything, confidence is so much more important than anything else. This is true, and confidence is not ego. And they actually are kind of inverse. Like the bigger your ego is, usually means the lower your confidence is. Your ego is sort of like how you puff yourself up and inflate yourself up, what you think you're entitled to, trying to put on a show for people. And if you're confident, you don't have to do that. You don't have to put on a show. You're comfortable with who you are. It's like a comfortableness. You're self-assured. You're just like, this is who I am, and I'm cool with it. And you don't have to get validation from people. You don't need it. Those two things are, I think sometimes people confuse ego. They think ego is confidence. It's not. It's almost the exact opposite. So critically, experience also bestows men with a sense of confidence, which is an essential dating commodity. Men entering the dating market with more years of relationship experience are typically better placed than those with less. While healthy adolescent relationships are valuable learning experiences, without proper support and guidance, there are, of course, clear risks as well. Teen dating violence and abuse is not uncommon, but that's all the more reason why early dating experiences matter. Young people who aspire to be in a committed romantic relationship will be better able to identify the personal qualities that matter to them and to recognize relationship red flags. Teen dating also enables parents to provide greater support, as these experiences often occur while teens are still living under the parents' roof. This is true. Parents and other parental figures can model healthy relationship practices. Parental guidance is invaluable in helping young people develop positive romantic attachments that require compromise, flexibility, and sacrifice. Romantic relationships are never without risk, but early romantic failures tend to be less costly and less complicated than they are in later years. Like so many things, it's difficult to do from the sidelines. Learning comes through experience. Given that most teenagers still aspire to get married, even if they're saying, oh, I can do that later and later and later in life, right? But they're still saying they want to get married. It's puzzling that relationship experiences are not afforded more of a priority. Our research shows that these early relationship experiences are associated with long-term commitments. Americans who had a romantic relationship as a teenager are more likely to be married today or to be in a committed relationship. 62% of Americans who had a steady girlfriend or boyfriend during most or all of their teenage years report being married today, compared to less than half, 46% of those who did not. The gap is even wider among younger Americans. Obviously, this data cannot speak to relationship quality, nor does it convey anything about causality. Teenage relationships do not necessarily lead people to get married, but it's not particularly surprising that people who prioritize establishing romantic connections earlier end up like doing so later, right? End up getting married or involved in long-term relationships. So if you think you want to be married, even if you're a young person who's saying, yeah, I want to be married, but you're buying into like doing it later in life, then it would behoove you to have some practice. Even though we don't tend to think of it that way when you're young, like when you start dating, you're never like, oh, I'm practicing. You're like, this is the guy, right? Like you're dating someone, you're like, this could be the guy. That's what dating is. You think it could be the person. Okay. Dating experience. By the way, I will say if you are somewhat black-pilled or pessimistic about dating and which I know some friends who are because they're on the dating sites and they're just, not having a good run of it. First of all, I met a couple. Well, I didn't meet them. I've met them a while back, but I just learned this past week how they met, which was online. They met on OkCupid. And they're like a success story for a dating site. So there are success stories out there, I will say. That surprised me. But the other thing I'll say is I do think that there's somebody for everybody. And I know that sounds trite and cheesy, but if you want to see an uplifting bit of entertainment that's going to increase your belief in being able to find someone who's like your perfect fit, right? I would suggest watching, I know I've mentioned it before, but I would suggest especially this season of Love on the Spectrum. It's a docuseries. Now, it's about autistic people. It's specifically about autistic people dating, but sometimes you can watch something that's about a microcosm of a population, and then you can draw conclusions about the broader population at large. And I think this is one of those shows where you can do that. Yes, it's about autistic people, but there are things you can learn in general, even if you're not autistic, by watching it. And there's not a lot of wholesome programming anymore. This is, I think, one of the most wholesome TV shows out there right now, especially the new season that just happened. There are success stories, and you want to talk about overcoming hurdles. Like the people who are on the show have had to overcome all the hurdles that we all have to overcome in social skills and meeting people and trying to date and find our perfect match, if that's what you're looking for, find our spouse, right? But they also are doing so with the added complication of being autistic and, having an extra hard time understanding social cues and nonverbal cues. So, oh, Nina was going to raid you, but you don't have it on. Kind of Nina raid. Oh, okay. I've got to talk to her and figure out how to do that. Hey, folks. Hey, guys, coming from Nina's channel. Good to see you. I was just recommending, if you haven't seen it, you guys should watch the show Love on the Spectrum. We're talking about dating today, young people and dating. And that is a show about young people with autism dating. And there are many success stories on the show. And it's just a wonderful show. I cried. And look, one of my male friends cried. He told me he cried watching it. It's a really cute show. Okay, dating experience. Not everyone is ready to navigate the complexities of romantic relationships as a teenager. It can take time for some people to find their emotional footing or to sort out their sexual identity and interests. That's fair. No one should feel pressure to date before they are ready. A girl I liked once told me that she thought I was, quote, a bit slow because of how long it took me to pick up on her obvious cues. In case you're wondering, I'm now happily married, he says. With that said, the extent to which young men lack relationship experience from their teenage years may help to explain unfortunate examples of male dating behavior that crops up on social media. It may help to explain the rise of loneliness and increasing common teenage experience. So online, a lot of people are talking about what they're calling the male loneliness epidemic. And that clip that I started with, a lot of people were incorrectly, in my opinion, saying that the men not choosing that woman in that tiny clip taken out of context, that explains the loneliness epidemic. And I disagree. That's not what's behind it. But there are increasing numbers of men who are self-reporting that they're lonely. And so everyone's wondering what this is. I think it's a more complicated answer. It's not because they're too picky, like people were saying about that clip. It's just that our culture, we've suffered through some pretty brutal wars. I would say cultural wars and spiritual wars designed to destroy the family, designed to destroy the interpersonal relationships between men and women. When I was in the woke world, when I was at college at Duke, my minor was women's studies, and some of the writing that we were reading. So this is like early woke stuff before it was called woke, back when it was called social justice. But a lot of the third wave feminist kind of woke writing that we were reading, it was about how the movement, the social justice movement, had been much more successful at dividing people along racial lines, but they had to find a way to divide people along the sexual lines between, the gender differences lines. And it was basically saying the reason why it's been more successful with race than with sex was because of marriage, because men and women, these two different identity groups that they're trying to divide, come together. Biologically, we come together to create families. And I think as a Christian, we're designed to come together and create families, right? And it was saying that until the feminist movement figured out how to break that up, to break up marriage, that they wouldn't be able to advance the goals of the women's part of woke, like of the women's movement. It was they were this blunt in the writing, telling you this, like saying this. We have to figure out how to attack marriage. We have to figure out how to break up men and women. How to basically, to destroy families. They saw this as essential and said so to furthering women's rights and what they called women's liberation. Davina says they almost succeeded. Yes. Now, knowing that, maybe you didn't read this kind of stuff in college like I did. I was reading this stuff. It was the late 90s. Knowing that they were this on the nose about it and they were this open about it, the feminist part of woke, like we have to destroy families. And I'll tell you, the queer part of woke is also this open about it. They say they want to destroy all norms and traditions, including the nuclear family. They want to destroy the idea of age of consent for children. They're open about it. So knowing that this ideology is like stated that these are the goals. Now flash forward to the year 2025 and look where we're at. Women became more like, I would say, more like gay men in terms of sexuality, in terms of being sluts, to use a colloquial term, but in being sold this lie that being sexually promiscuous was empowering and good for you, right? You do you. That kind of narcissism and hedonism that was sold to women was pretty successful. That women should prioritize their career over having kids, over finding a husband and creating a family. That lie was pretty successful. That what you do for a career is the most important thing about you and the defining thing about you. That lie was pretty successful. Yeah, I think some people in the chat are talking about it's demonic. It is, because Satan, if you're a Christian now, I know there's some non-Christians in the chat who always get annoyed when I explain a Christian perspective, but I'm going to do it anyway. A Christian perspective is that Satan is the great inverter. He inverts everything. He reverses everything. Up is down, down is up. Sweet for bitter, bitter for sweet. And so it's demonic because they're basically pointing women in the opposite direction and they're pointing men in the opposite direction of where they should be going. That's what's been happening culturally. And so feminism has been very successful at selling a lot of lies to women, the feminist part of woke. And now you have this reactionary red pill manosphere kind of ideology that some people say is part of the whole woke right thing. I tend to agree. And they get some things right, like I said before, but they're almost the inverse of the feminists. They're also aimed at destroying traditional marriage and relationships. They're certainly not aimed at healing the damage that's been done. If you look at some of the popular influencers in that sphere, there's one of them, a woman named Pearl, and all she does 24/7 is discourage men from the possibility of ever finding a sincere and faithful spouse or being able to start a family. She 100% discourages people from that, which I'm not surprised because she hasn't experienced it. So why would she think that it exists? Maybe she truly is that much of a black-pilled person herself. I don't know. Or maybe it's just for clicks. But there are lots of influencers like her in that red pill and manosphere space, and they're just like the third wave feminists, but instead of saying that it's all men's fault, everything in society is men's fault, and men are evil, men are misogynists, and men are oppressors and all this, they flip it and they say it's all women's fault, and women are evil, and they're all depraved, and they're all sluts, and you don't want to get married ever. But they're selling the same thing. It's demonic. It's Satan. It doesn't matter which way he sells it. He's selling it both ways, right? It's an attack on the family either way. Hold on. Andrew Knapp, where do we find the literature of breaking up families? I'm going to put together a list for you. How about that? I'm writing this down so I don't forget. We can even go through some of it. I will tell you off the top of my head, a good compilation, a book that we read for book club was Queering the American Child. That's a recent book that you can get by, I think it's Logan Lansing and James Lindsay. And it's got a lot of resources in there. It cites a lot of these sources. I will put together a list, and we'll probably do a whole episode on it. It's a great question. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you for the super chat. Achilles Jones for £2. Thank you so much. Says cheers from Nina Infinity. This is an old school raid. Oh, an old school raid. My favorite kind, the manual kind. You have to go and type in the channel. Okay. I'm going to come back to this. So we were talking about the male loneliness epidemic. Okay, young men who learn how to be good partners, who are better able to recognize the qualities in a partner that are important to them, are less likely to go through life feeling disaffected and isolated. Having a partner or spouse is not the only way of living a good life, but finding a good partner can make a huge difference. If establishing healthy relationship is a life goal, there is no reason that men or women should delay in developing the skills necessary to its achievement. So we're pretty much at the end of that one. There's so many articles about this now. This is one from The Atlantic. I'm not going to belabor it. It's got a lot of it's not the same article, but it's got some similar information. Teens are foregoing a classic rite of passage. Fewer young people are getting into relationships. There's that one. This one is an article about how Gen Z is getting tired of, well, one of the reasons they're not dating as much is that they're having a lot of bad experiences with online dating. As a lot of us know, and as I mentioned before, I have a lot of friends who are trying to date online, and it's just for many people, it's a bad experience. They're not all success stories like the couple I told you about. And so they're looking to try and meet people, quote unquote, the old fashioned way. As dating apps such as Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble fail to meet younger generations' needs, new dating events mix tradition and technology to help singles meet in real life. I saw this joke online, and it was sort of actually, I don't think it was a joke. It was real, and then people were kind of joking about it, but it was some young people, some Gen Z people. It was an article about how they had started having these events in New York, and they're like, it's like a podcast where we get together and we sit on the couch and we have a conversation and coffee and stuff, but we do it in real life without cameras there. And what's funny to us older people is we're like, yeah, like that's just normal. That's what we did before the internet. We would just get together at a coffee shop and hang out and have conversations like, welcome to throwing a party or having friends over, right? They're like, there's this new thing where you invite people to your house and they sit on a couch. And it's kind of like a podcast, like a round table, but there's no cameras and everybody just kind of talks and has coffee. Yes, I know. It's so funny. It's like they're rediscovering it. This is good for them though. I know we're laughing, but it's good. You should be doing this. Yes. Turn off the phones, turn off the podcast, and try hanging out in real life. Right. So, okay. I'm gonna pull up one last thing. I don't want to leave you on this dark pill thing, but I would be remiss. I can't cover everything I wanted to today. I have something I have to get to. My husband and I. Speaking of, my husband and I are having a date night. It's a rare Friday that he doesn't work because he's a musician. So normally his work days are, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like all the weekend stuff. It's the opposite of most people. But today is a rare Friday. He's off. So we're going to the movies, and I'm just telling you everything. We're doing date night. And so I got to go soon, but I want to show you this. This is what I think. Somebody mentioned this before, and I promised I would get back to it. Keri, do you have tattoos? Like a lot of people of my age who came up in tail end of Gen X, early millennials, late Gen X, yes. I got 2 tattoos on my 18th birthday. I got a little tiny frog. My friend and I got a matching butterflies, a little tiny butterfly. And I'm very glad I didn't get any more. Those were the day of my 18th birthday. I really thought I would get more tattoos every 10 years. I thought when I was young, I thought it's a rite of passage and it's going to be, and I'm so glad I didn't do that now, because I think a lot of that was I'm not trying to shame anyone or make anyone feel bad. You do you on tattoos. I really don't care. But I think for me and for a lot of people, it's a substitute for identity. And people are like, let me get tattoos of who I am and express myself, right, on my skin. I think that's the way they think of it. And I certainly did. When I was 28, I thought I was going to get more. And guess what? I didn't know God. I wasn't a Christian. My identity was wrapped up in different IPs. Maybe this is true for some of you guys, like different things I was a fan of. So I was going to get a Doctor Who tattoo. I was going to get a phone box, the TARDIS on my arm. And thank God my ex-husband said no. He was like, it's going to just look terrible. Don't get a phone box on your arm. I'm like, well, I love Doctor Who. Gosh, I'm so glad. The other thing I was going to get was the big feminist symbol with the women's fist inside of it. Can you imagine that on my bicep? Oh my goodness. I'm so glad he talked me out of those. And I ended up, it was a blessing in disguise because I couldn't decide on something. And so I ended up not doing it. And then my views started to change. I started leaving woke. God started pulling at me, which was I've talked about before. And then eventually I got to this place where I realized, oh, my identity is none of those things I thought I was going to advertise on my body, you know. So silly. I think that's why. Now, I have seen very tasteful, beautiful ones, so I do like tattoos on some people. I do. But for the most part, I think most of them are identity attempts at identity expression or something. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Let's see. ADL, thank you for the super chat for $4.99 says, I think young people have been overprotected while also being exposed to some terrible things. Yes. Talk to someone who watches porn and Disney movies. Oh, yes. That's the thing is they watch a lot of porn and we don't know what that's doing to them. Thank you for the super chat. And that's this piece I wanted to share with you. And it's pretty depressing, but I think it's worth talking about. And I hope we're going to start trending away from this because it seems like people are starting to become aware that it's not great for people and especially for young people whose brains are developing, right? Pornography use among young adults in the US. Pornography exists in many forms across the internet, including pictures, videos, audio, written materials, video games, social media posts. A majority of the US population has intentionally viewed pornography before, with an even larger majority of US young adults viewing pornography regularly. Like it is the norm now for young people to view porn and very explicit porn, extreme porn. Despite the widespread use of and support for pornography, viewing sexually explicit media can have many negative consequences. For example, pornography use has been shown to correlate with decreased sex life satisfaction. This is absolutely true. Lack of positive self-image and increased chances of divorce. This is true too. Research also shows that both pornography viewers and pornography actors are likely to experience emotional health consequences. Two of the reasons people consume pornography so frequently are because the content has addictive properties. We know this to be true. It changes your brain. Neurologists have talked about the way it changes your brain, just like addictive chemicals. It's changing your pathways, the way you process information. And this is why it's making it harder for people to have sex life satisfaction with their spouse. If they have a porn addiction, it's harder for them to actually have an orgasm sometimes. Like they are having problems with erectile dysfunction, men are, and it's leading to libido problems, essentially. Among young men, too, we're seeing ED rates for young men that we've never seen before. Okay. Likewise, two of the reasons people consume pornography so frequently are because the content has addictive properties and because it is widely marketed on the internet and therefore easily accessed. Yeah, like I said before, we never had these growing up. We don't know what this is doing to us, and especially to young people, having this kind of access to pornography all the time, to this addictive kind of sexual media consumption. We don't know what that's like. Gen X, back in our day, you had to go rent a VHS and you had to be an adult and know an adult, or maybe you got a peek at a Playboy magazine. I know some young men who had that, like, oh, I saw a Playboy once or something. It was not, or you had to, like Pee Wee Herman, you had to go to like a movie theater. I don't think young people can't even wrap their heads around that. Like, you really had to make an effort to get some porn. It's not like today. So likewise, the pornography industry generates massive amounts of revenue, which continually fuel the creation and advertising of new pornography. While there are many resources available to combat pornography use, the main practice to decrease pornography is to publicize its negative consequences and alert people to the risks that they assume when they view sexually explicit content. So it goes on and it talks about, this is worth a read. This is a Ballard brief. If you want to find this, it's BALLARD brief.byu.edu. But that was the summary at the beginning and the takeaways. Porn consumption for young people, I don't think we can overestimate the impact that's having on their relationships and beyond porn, just social media and the internet in general, like this constant ubiquitous access to digital interface and socializing, which seems to have supplanted and taken the place of in-person relationships and in-person gatherings and getting together. And it's just changing. It's changing everything. Achilles Jones for 10 pounds. Thank you, Achilles Jones. The super chat says, family is under attack from all sides. God invented the family to reveal his ways to the next generation in moral excellence. The Holy Spirit brings conviction, healing, and restoration. I couldn't agree more. I thank you so much for this message and for supporting the channel, but for this message especially. The interview that's coming out on Tuesday that I mentioned with Marcus Allen, he's the FBI whistleblower who was canceled by the FBI, and they tried to make an example of him for a couple of years. He's an amazing person, and one of the things he talked about a lot was the Holy Spirit changing you, about pursuing God, about God being the answer to all these different societal and cultural ailments and the things that we're all interested in. And I agree with him, and I love the fact that, like you, he just says it like it is. He's one of the smartest people I've ever interviewed, and he just lays it out about his belief in Christ, and there's no apology for it. And I love that. So I highly recommend that. That's going to be coming out on Tuesday. Bungalow says, it was also harder to watch porn when we were growing up because porn was on VHS, and so nobody else could be in the house. Big hindrance there. Yes, it wasn't like it was on your phone. You didn't even have a phone. The phone was plugged into the wall, and it was, attached with a cord. You had to block out time when you were going to be the one to use it. Penguin, you seem like a good lady, Keri. I hope you make your husband proud and vice versa every single day. That is very kind. I hope the same for you. And for there's nothing better in life. And let me tell you, the stuff that Pearl is selling that I was talking about earlier, it makes me so frustrated sometimes because I feel like she's wasting her. She's leading young people down the wrong path. You're wasting that influence that you have to sell young people on this dark lie that maybe you've bought into, that life is pointless and marriage is pointless and the opposite sex is pointless and everything sucks. And you're nihilist at that point. That's what she's selling. And it makes me frustrated because if I could impart something to young people, and I know they probably won't listen. When I was young, I didn't listen to older people usually, but if I could say something that they would listen to, or if I could talk to my younger self, it would be the exact opposite of what Pearl is saying. It would be, look, there are good men out there and there are good women out there, and you don't want to wait until it's too late to start looking and to start prioritizing that and to start thinking about what's really important in life. And I would also say you're in a matrix, and the secular world that you're in and the stuff it's telling you is important. It's not true. And when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about like, oh, I wish, I'd worked 10 more hours a day or 5 more hours a day or whatever at that corporate job under the fluorescent lights for so-and-so boss. And, like, I think if you have any regrets, it's going to be the ones that are meaningful, like relationship wise. And the reason I would say this to young people is because, when I was younger, I bought into a lot of the lies, and I wasn't putting the appropriate priority on creating a family. And so I think what she's doing is a disservice to young people. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of rambling today, but Penguin Joy. It's like the song, the EDM one that makes you cry by pointing out you need relationships. Yes, we do. We need relationships. Without a husband, says Therese. Hey, Therese, who's going to open my pickle jars? It's true. And all kinds of jars, really. I had Anthony open some a water bottle yesterday. I couldn't even get the water bottle open. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm having a little brain fog today, I think. Maybe it was the different writing projects, but I hope you were able to follow along, and thank you for joining today. If you have a question for Razor Fist, leave it in the comments of this video. I'm going to be doing a live with him on Monday at the regular time, 2:00 Central, here on Deprogrammed. And then on Tuesday, I'm putting out an interview with Marcus Allen, the FBI whistleblower. And I'm very honored that he came on Deprogrammed to talk with us. And so I'll be letting you guys know about both of those this weekend, so we have time to tell people about them. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.